Hi, everybody. It's such a privilege to be here again with you. And this time, I'm so excited. And let me tell you why I'm excited. Because today, we have one of Africa's most prominent angel investors joining us. This guy have not only mentored, but literally spends his life supporting African founders, but also advocating for the continent. It will be quite a conversation today. So, as always, welcome to the Pitch Room Africa. Esther, how are you doing?
I'm fine, CD. I'm looking forward to today's session. Welcome, Steven.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with both of you today and everybody out there. And yeah, this is great. So thank you.
So, for those of you who don't know who
Welcome.
Stephen is, which will be a complete shame if you don't know him, right? Stephen has been one of the most active supporter of African entrepreneurship that I know today. He's just coming from South Africa, so he's going to tell us all about his time down there, and he's just relaxing in the US. And I know that he's probably taking time to go back to the continent sometime soon. But Stephen, tell us, how was South Africa? How did you find it? What was your experience this time around down in Cape Town?
Yeah. Thank you, City. It was actually life altering. I thought I was going down there to one, get out of winter in upstate New York and enjoy summer at the beach in Cape Town and see my partners and friends and all the businesses I'm invested in. But it turned out to be on a personal level, just totally welcoming. And so I feel like that's really my new home. And my hope is to spend about half the year based in Cape Town. So it was just fantastic, actually.
So why Cape Town and not Nigeria? Just because.
Okay, great question. As somebody invested in startups in 25 African countries, why Cape Town? The there's a number of reasons, but really the main one, which is part of my story, is that I have some serious medical conditions in terms of my kidneys, and so as it turns out, Cape Town is one of the medical capitals of the whole world. So it's a place that I can do all my business and live a great life, but also get as good medical care as anywhere that I could imagine.
Great. Um,
Wow.
so, Esther. So here's a
Yeah.
funny question. Um, Stephen, you've been to the continent. You enjoy time there.
Mhm.
Um, which African continent would you say have the best food that you've had?
Uh-huh. Did you say
Which
the best
African
food?
countries? Yeah, the best food so
Yeah.
far that you.
Okay. So here was what it was like for me being in Cape Town. I'm a former restaurant owner also, so I love food and
Oh,
cooking and a real foodie. But I promised while I was in Cape Town to not cook any of my meals and just go out a lot and explore it all. So um, what I loved about being there was all the fresh seafood and fish being, local and all that. And then for someone from winter in New York, all the fruit, like eating watermelon and papaya and mango in February. Um, the only thing that we have here where I live in the States this time of year is like, potatoes and stuff like that from last season. So I love the food in Cape Town. And in fact, I felt really healthy on top of happy and connected.
I can really imagine what that feels like. I mean, food, quality of life, it's very important. Food plays a very strong role in the entire quality of life. So I'm happy, but why not? And also, I want to say sorry about your health. I know that you're going to get better and better, and we're believing that everything is going to be very perfect. We'll stay in touch to know that you're feeling very okay as well. But I want to bring a very controversial food topic now around Ghana jollof and Nigerian
Uh-huh.
jollof. I don't know if you've heard about that controversy. I'd like you to throw your weight in on
Yeah.
which one do you think is the best? Tell us. Have you eaten Nigerian jollof or Ghana jollof?
I don't want to alienate
As a
anybody,
foodie.
and I'm not an expert, so I won't like take sides. One of the things you were, but just to riff on what you were saying of just like the quality of life. Like when I was in Cape Town, I think I had 3 or 4 meetings every single day for like 6 weeks, and I went to all kinds of startup
Wow.
events and all sorts of things like that. But I had my meetings over cappuccino, looking at the ocean at a cafe, talking
Wow.
business, being really serious, but in an environment and a quality of having a business meeting um, that was unequaled. It's just like it was
That's
incredible to
balance.
be, you know,
That's
uh,
balance right there.
having really serious conversations, but being looking at the waves come in while we're talking about all these companies and decisions and that investments and that sort of thing.
So, Stephen, I've
Thank you,
always,
Steve. I totally agree with you. Sidi, have you solved
yeah.
the Ghana jollof and Nigerian jollof thing as a
So I,
foodie,
I,
as someone
I,
who
If
I think it
people
was
want to look at
Sidi?
my posts from that time, I did a thing of Cape Town dining, and I had all kinds of things that I ate while I was there in detail.
so the idea is to
Okay.
get into the conversation between between the two. Stephen, that's one thing that I've always wanted to ask, um, which is what gets you into investing, firstly, but also why Africa? Because I have seen the passion and I've seen. We could talk a little bit about your background, your story, where you actually started. Africa was never really a conversation for you. So, what happened? How did that change happen? And why are you so enthusiastic about it today?
That's a great question. Um, I'll start here. I did spend 10 years living in Costa Rica doing similar things. And when I came back to the US, I worked with Cornell University uh, as a visiting entrepreneur to try to get startups out of all of their intellectual property, patents, inventions, and things like that. After that, I saw that after 3 years with Cornell, I saw that I really wanted to be on the other side, to be the one investing, mentoring, uh, kind of finding things. So, as somebody from a minority tribe, I grew up always to support the people who don't get as much money or support as others. So, what they call underrepresented founders. So, I started off as an investor in female venture capital funds, female founders, and other underrepresented founders. When I was doing that, I met this guy from Ghana uh, who just captivated me. And I just decided I had to invest in him and mentor him, and support him. And that was really the start. From there, my co-investors, that was Derek Ashang and Amp Global, now Take Back the Mic. And all of my co-investors ended up being like kind of an all-star venture investor of all over Africa. So I had all these now partners and friends. And from there, it's just been a whole bunch of stuff.
Is it because your life, the life that you live today, is a representation of resistance, and you are able to connect that emotionally to the startup you are investing in? Because a lot of we've seen what happened last year and this year, and a lot of investors, especially foreign investors, are holding back. And it's natural because you're looking at their returns and the risk. They're looking at the risk, but you haven't slowed down. So I'm thinking, what is the fuel behind this? Why haven't you slowed down when a lot of this is the period where in a lot it makes sense for a lot of investors to actually slow down, but you haven't. What's going on?
No,
And
I feel
what?
just the opposite. In fact, I feel like right a couple of years ago there was much more money flowing around, and in the last year or two things have been tighter. But that felt like that's when I was needed even more. So even in that time, I've become a first. I think one of the most interesting things to be in Africa is be a first investor. So to be not African and to be the first investor in some young African founder, and then get my African partners to hopefully come join me, which is funny. So I was an investor in uh, some newer startups recently when you're saying people slowing down. So Shiprazor with Sahil Afria, it's a logistics last mile delivery, which is something I came across when I was there of like, it's hard to get stuff right to people because you can't leave stuff on people's doorsteps or, um, in their mailbox if it's valuable in Africa. So, and another IQ Pay from Johannesburg. Um, and now I'm getting into also real estate. I was thinking in Cape Town with Ask Property. So a young, you know, the young founders need help even more now. And so I guess I'll say one more thing before I pause is I feel like what I need to be is sort of a bridge, as I'm a unique person in the ecosystem in being a 69-year-old person born in Brooklyn, New York, and yet who feels very comfortable in Africa and with founders and to become a bridge for all the different for people from other places who would be great investors and mentors, but it's a little more foreign. So I'm try to make it uh, easier for people to understand.
I'd like to take you a little bit backwards. When you say that you were born in a minority, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so I'm a child of immigrants. I'm Jewish, so I've always my family's always been persecuted and a minority and always wandering around the world to be safe. So it's easier for me, and that's how we're brought up to identify with to stand up for people who don't always get as much support but deserve it. And so that's part of how we're brought up. And so um, yeah, and I feel um, my family has been in Africa at some point, but it was probably thousands of years ago. So it doesn't feel totally foreign, even though it's from another point in history.
Yeah, okay,
Let's
thank you very much.
no,
Siri,
Esther, go on.
you want to
Esther, go on.
go?
No, 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 go on. Go on.
Okay, so I'd like to, we're celebrating this. People say that International Women's Day is still ongoing for the whole month of March. Companies have dedicated their time to celebrate women, invest in women, and coincidentally, this year's theme is about investment, right? Financially investing in women, inspiring inclusion, especially around the area of finance. Would you say that you've come across founders who are female? And what are your thoughts about investing in female founders? The challenges, the unique challenges, and successes, if any.
That's a great question. So that was really my introduction to Africa came from investing in female founders. So I'm invested in two venture firms that invest only in female founders, and so I was as much as I'm a unique character in the African ecosystem, the same in the female founder one as one of the early investors. And so the statistics are always it doesn't matter whether it's Africa, the US, or anywhere, that women are like around 50% of the population and just as smart, and yet they only get max like 5% of early investor funds, and in some cases much less depending on the demographics. So so this is the plus. So people could talk all they want, but what I do is both invest. I'm invested in many female founders, but even more than that, I stand with them. So I wish it wasn't like this, but since people don't treat other people fairly based on how they look, whether it's their size, their gender, their race, whatever, their age. So one of the ways that I'm the most helpful is just to stand with my female founders and add credibility to that. I think they're awesome and I put money in and I'm behind them, and that helps their chances. I wish it wasn't like that again, but it is.
How
Well,
many?
thank you so much. Thank you
How
so
many?
much, Stephen. And before I hand you over to before I hand you over to CD, I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the underrepresented females in Africa. Thank you for what you do, and we're totally proud to have you in our corner. Thank you. CD, over to you.
Yeah, Stephen, I was going to ask how many today, how many startups have you invested in across the continent?
Yeah,
How many of that it makes up the female founders that you've just passionately spoke about?
that's a great question. Um, Okay, so I have things a few different ways. So I am an early investor in Launch Africa, which we just had our 3-day annual event in Cape Town, which was awesome. But so with the fund, and you met, and Zachariah, um, we have over like 130 investments in 25 plus African countries. I also have personally like a dozen investments individually outside of the fund, as well as a handful of the founders in the fund who call me up and say, "Hey, I'm a launch company. Can I, get together with you and can you help me?" So, and and I'd say the earlier part of my career, almost all my investments had female founders, and I think in Africa it's a pretty good balance of uh, females, males, all different types of founders. Uh, yeah,
So let's just go back. Let's go back a little bit because foundationally investing in itself has its headache, and it comes with a lot of risk. It comes with a lot of risk. What's what was like apart from just the inspiration or the burning or the amazing person that you met? What was it within your story that makes you feel like it was time?
yeah, yeah. It's great. As you said before, I hadn't really
I had
thought of Africa as a focus for me until I met this one person, and that just opened up. Like I said, all my other co-investors became friends and partners, and invited me in. Um, okay, I think this is part of what it is. I'm not doing. I hope to make lots of money, obviously, like everybody else investing, but I can't think of anything more risky than early stage African startups. But that's that's where the biggest need is. So the idea for me to put my effort on Wall Street or Silicon Valley didn't make any sense. Of there's lots of people there, but in Africa, like I really, I feel like there's really a place for me. And I've met some wonderful young people who are totally brilliant, ambitious, educated, and yet need, whether it's introductions or money or just experience. Um, so at my age, the way I see it is, of course, I want to be as successful as possible, but really, how many young Africans I can help and businesses we could help create, that's really my legacy. And in fact, when I was at the launch thing, somebody brought up from our companies just in the fund that we've helped create 12,000 plus jobs. And so those are all families. And so that's really what's in it for me is my family started out with nothing, and at this point I feel like it's more my place to help other people you know, and share what I know.
Let's talk about entrepreneurship for you. So you own a restaurant.
Yeah.
How did that go? What happened? What is the story behind it? Is it still in existence? How did you exit? Tell us a little bit about that
Yeah.
time in
I
Costa Rica.
mean, this is how I think of it. I've had so many chapters by this point of things, and my style has always been to get totally interested in something, hopefully be very successful, and then usually after a few years, kind of change focus to something else after taking a break. So when I was in my 20s, which is 40 years ago, I was really into, I started being really into food and health and all that. Um, and so I went with my girlfriend partner to Massachusetts, and we opened a restaurant and was very successful. The lessons I learned were many. Um, One, it's a lot to work with your life partner to also be your business partner. Um, and I was young and it was great, but like restaurant, it was a very hard thing to it had its limits of success just on how many hours in a day there were. So it was after a few years, we actually sold it for a multiple of what we paid, which was really incredible for a restaurant. It's a very tough business, and and I love it. Then I became a restaurant reviewer, which was much more fun, less money, but you know. Uh, Having food not be the way that I make money, but just be interested in it and a patron of the restaurants.
So basically, food have been a part of your journey, your journey itself.
It has been, and now with my kidney stuff, it's a part of how I stay alive. Really, is I have to eat a certain way, and that was really great in Africa because I had so much fresh food. Um, I could feel healthier there. Uh,
So you speak openly, and you mentioned this. So I just like to just dig into it a little bit. You speak openly about your health and how you've been able to manage it, and the different points in your journey wherein doctors have actually literally said to you, for a better way of putting it, Stephen, go home and rest now. And you still keep pushing yourself, putting yourself out there. How have you been able to balance health, family expectation? Because when someone goes what is going through what you're going through today, your family, your close friends are also very also impacted, and the ambition for still, and you're balancing that together with your ambition to help founders in Africa grow and scale and invest. How are you balancing that?
that's a great question. It seems almost antithetical. Like out of the blue, 2 years ago, I was told I'm going to die if I don't go on dialysis or get a transplant. But I chose not to, and I'm still here. And I think it's like having a reason to wake up every day doesn't give me time to feel sorry for myself for getting this diagnosis. So I actually have felt more energy to work and to do things and to make the most of my time. And as I do that, which is really the opposite of most people in my position would not travel to Africa. I don't think anybody in my with my numbers would be on a plane to Africa by themselves. And you know, it actually gives me energy to have a purpose. And I'm really thankful to all the, I guess, the welcome I felt for for being in Africa and all my, let's put it this way, all of my partners and my the people I've invested in, I consider all of them friends and sort of like that. They're like my African family. In the United States, when you invest, it's not like that. It's much more transactional. Um, but I would say that just about all of the business I do in Africa has so much more of a personal connection uh, that gives it meaning.
Esther, I thought you were going to come in there with the mental health questions.
I
As-
I am touched, I'm moved, I am intrigued. I cannot find the right words to express how I feel about how you turned something that looked as if it was going to be the end of your life to the beginning of your life. I'm perplexed. I don't really have what to say, but one of the things that I'm big on, knowing that you identify as an African now, listening to you speak, there are so many touch points in your life that looks like an African, right? And I totally am in awe of that. But what I want to ask largely around mental health, we know that mental health has now become a big deal globally, right? How people navigate through stress, the loss of a job, a health condition, the loss of a loved one. All of these things are stressors that can seep right into the life of an individual and turn things around. For someone who does the kind of work that you do, how have you been able to stay in top shape mentally, knowing that you didn't just wake up and say, I'm going to call these guys bluff and just move, and you didn't have a plan? You had a plan, right? Even if you were not too sure if this was going to work, but you had something that you thought could work. How can you take us through your how you were able to go on that mental journey? Because this would be very useful for a lot of founders who are listening to you, and because of just one instance, they want to give up. You didn't give up on yourself, so you can now invest in African founders. African founders should not give up on themselves, so they can actually help millions of other people with the solutions that they have. So I want you to just share briefly about your experience, how you were able to manage yourself mentally. It's important. We need that.
I love that question. That's such an insightful, interesting question. And to be honest with you, when people ask me a different question, like how do you choose which people and companies to invest in? And so I always my one of my first answers is always just what you said. I invest in people that I think are not going to give up. There's no way to start something in anywhere, but in Africa in particular, that you're not going to hit roadblocks. You're not going to need to shift things for one reason or another. And so there's a million good ideas and problems to solve. So which people are going to not give up and really make this opportunity work no matter what? And that's so for me, part of what I bring, because I don't I can't get involved operationally in all these companies. A lot of it is just talking to the founders. That's the after the money part, it's I'm on the phone daily to some of my African founders to just keep them up when things are frustrating or when they feel whatever, when they feel poor, when they feel uh, people are saying no, when it's when life's too hard. I have to get them off the phone feeling optimistic. And basically, in the few years that I've been sick, like when I post on LinkedIn, one of my recent posts got 25,000 people read it, which I was shocked. Like I'm not a well-known person really. And what I get is a lot of emails from people saying just that. Like I have some other challenge in my life, but when I read how you take the death sentence and turn it into an opportunity, it helps me them, not get so crushed by whatever they're going through. So I didn't plan it that way, but in telling my story, and being I just got something from one of the people I met while I was there, and he called me uncle. It's like there's something about being a slightly older but cool, experienced person in Africa versus the U.S., where um, people really value old people and really include me. And that's really been probably that's what's going to make people successful in Africa. It's like you can't do it alone kind of thing. So both intergenerationally and also as investors, as Sidi knows, um, when we invest, we have all kinds of partners. Like, we're not competing for a deal. Everything I'm invested in, I'm happy when all my other friends and groups and funds decide to invest also, because it takes all of us to make it work. And that's very different in other parts of the world where there's more competition for the deals. Um, so the mental health is such a big part of what I feel like as an uncle, as a father, as a grandfather to my founders, to help keep them cool. They got a lot of stress, and um, that's something. That's one of the main things I feel like I'm there for, to to help them stay balanced.
So, would you say that helping them stay balanced is what helped you stay stable mentally? Because
Absolutely.
people will be very quick to throw, people will be very quick to throw, oh, 10 things I did to stay in top shape mentally, oh, 5 secrets on how I did this. What would be yours? I mean, I'm not asking because it's something I want founders who are watching this to
Yeah.
imbibe or to just copy and paste. But I think it's very important to be able to identify with what you've been through. It's an African story. If you're sick and if you're dealing with a challenge, if any African is dealing with a challenge like yours,
Yeah.
it's really very rare to have the kind of mindset that you have.
Right.
Of course, you mentioned the challenge that has to do with getting top tier healthcare, which is very important. We don't really have that as top range here.
Yeah.
So, what will be the thing that kept you through this period, through this moment? What would you say is that one thing or two things that kept you going? And then how was that journey for you? It wasn't easy. It wasn't just so easy to say, oh, doctor said I'm going to die. Okay, so I'm going to switch on to eating healthy and then I'm going to be fine. So, doctors, I'm out. Against doctors' orders, I'm signing. It's not that easy. There was something that really went down, and we would like to know what went down and how did you manage it? That's basically what the question is
Yeah.
looking to get out.
Um, that Another good question. I think one of the things that really fit together is my situation and Africa's situation are the same. We don't have a lot of wiggle room. Like, uh, it has to work. Like, I don't have a chance to sit and just give up, because if I give up, it's going to be over. And it's the same in a lot of my things in Africa. Like, it takes a super ambition to not get into a defeatist mind. Like, I got told I'm going to die. Nothing. There's nothing more challenging than that. I mean, I got told that yesterday. Like, that's what I'm told. But I think I didn't really decide anything. I think I just didn't have. I realized if I was going to make the most of this, I have to just kind of go forward and believe in myself. And man, it's really hard to believe in yourself when all the odds are against you. And so, in that way, it's similar to founders in Africa. It's like the odds. It's not the easiest place. There's not the most money flowing around, or whatever. So I think there's like some force greater than me, because I never thought of myself as quite this brave or bold or fearless. So, one of the things I do feel from my experience in Africa is so many people cheering for me, praying for me, um, and just telling me, like, I belong here. And so it helped. That really helps also. And on the practical, I do all the things you suggested in the beginning. I go to the gym every day. I eat well. I take all my meds. I see my doctor. I get frequent blood tests. But still, with all that, they're like, no, a person can't live with your condition. And yet, I'm actually feeling better than I did a year ago or something. And it's it's weird when you get to a point also where there's no doctor in the world who knows what to tell you. So it's not like there's anything. All that any nephrologist anywhere in the world knows what to say is go on dialysis or get a transplant or you'll die. And I'm like, I don't want any of those options. and so I'm really all alone, just figuring this out as I go. And so having all the having, you know, this is the most involved I've ever been. Like all the stuff doing in Africa professionally. I'm 69 years old, and I think it all fits together. Even though it might seem like, why don't you just sit and relax and luxuriate or something? But no, I need to be connected to something and have goals, because that makes the time more precious.
I think, I think that's so amazing. I mean, what is more amazing is the fact that, in as much as you had a death sentence, you took your death sentence and turned it into a life sentence, right? You decided to live your best life. You decided to find a purpose to keep living, and I'm totally amazed at the work that you've done. And CD, I'd like to also say something. I know you're keenly waiting to ask Stephen more questions, but I'd like to ask. We're celebrating International Women's Day. The whole of this month, people are still speaking about women and all of that. What would you say? Um, what would you say to a female founder who is somewhere in the remote part of Africa and has this brilliant idea, wants to change the world, but doesn't know how to get seen? How can that female founder find you, Stephen?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty active, so you could always find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and and at events and things like that. What I would suggest is I'm friends with and connected with a number of African female founder funds. So there's, I don't know if people are familiar with like 535 Ventures, and there's other ones that um, specifically invest in female founders, and they often have like innovation hubs, and um, have mentoring that goes along with it, because it is uh, I got to say, the last in well, we talk about it being Women's Month. I just when I thought I had been part of enough companies because I'm so busy. Um, just as I was leaving Cape Town, I got involved. I met somebody who had a great idea, and even though I thought I was just going to have a cup of coffee, I ended up becoming a partner before the cup of coffee was over. And uh, it's called Ask Property, and it's in this way that where the answer to your question is okay. So we have four. Um, our management team is four people. So when I started doing this investing, a lot of it was not just men, women, black, white, young, old, whatever, but how do you mix it up like the way the two of you are interviewing me to get the most of the combination? So when I joined this company, I thought this is finally, after 100 investments, we are two men, two women, two black, two white, um, uh, three or four different countries of origin, and our ages go from like 24 to 69. So I think that's really it. Like, how do you mix up what's unique about being a woman, or about being young, or being black, or whatever it is, and then mix it with the things so that your strength becomes a powerhouse thing because it's got everything else with it. So that's what I've done. I'll tell you, just about all of my businesses, starting with the restaurant, which we talked 40 years ago. I had a female partner when I lived in Costa Rica, and I had a real estate company there. I had a female partner. Pretty much everywhere I went, I thought it was like, some people want to, we have different strengths, and some people want to talk to a woman, to a man, whatever, whatever it is. It just seemed better than having everybody be the same demographic, whether it's male, female, black, or white. So that's my 2 cents about that for people.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Over to you, CD.
So, Stephen, again, first of all, it's just listening to you talk about your health and the life sentence and where you are right now is just, I think it's a lot more surreal than reading it, right? So
Yeah.
I've read this on LinkedIn, I've read it on Facebook, but just listening to you talk about it, it just added a little bit. The experience of hearing is just is just really different, to be honest. And I think it actually helps me to understand and have a picture of why you're doing this. And so I'm not going to ask any more questions on why you're doing this, because I think for the first time, I now fully have a clear picture of why you're doing this. So thank you very much for that gift, as an answer. And thank you, Esther, for that question. Um, so let's go back to investing.
Mhm.
Today, as you know, yes, I wouldn't say, just because I don't want to offend people, I wouldn't say there is no more capital, or there's not a lot of capital compared to where we were, um, um, 2020, 2019, 2020. Because a lot of the investors are still saying, some of them are still saying they have capital. I mean, we've seen Nochen just became oversubscribed with their funds, and we've seen a lot of different funds are closing. So there is capital. But what makes investors excited today? Because we've gone past the stage of FOMO, wherein, the fear of missing out. We've gone past that stage. So, what are the fundamental elements? Where are investors like you today? And what makes you see a company, see a founder today, and be convinced to want to invest in them? For example, you had a coffee with a founder, you made up your mind that you're going to invest. There's a lot of really, really great founders out there. Some of them I personally know, that are going through a major, major challenge of raising investment. They don't know what investors are looking at for now. Most times, investors will give them the blanket response to saying, "Oh, it is your, you know, have more metrics, have more money, have more revenue and everything." But we all know, you and I know, and this is a no bullshit conversation. You and I know that it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
So, in that spirit of honesty and just transparency, what are investors looking at today? What are you looking at today to make a decision just by having a coffee that I want to back these founders?
Yeah, I think you and I both have a good context of the last, say, 4 or 5 years, and seen all the excitement, and then how now it is a much tougher time. Um, okay, I think a lot of it doesn't really have to do with Africa. I think on a long term basis, this is the way I'll speak about it. I think in a long term basis, I don't think anything's changed. I think Africa, unlike most of the world, is solving real problems. Like most of the companies I invest in, when people tell me what they do, I say, "Oh, there must be lots of companies that do this." And they say, "Nope, there's nobody else like this. We're the first one." And I'm like, "What?" There's 20 companies like that in the US or whatever. So I think in that sense, it is the right long term play, and it's also true that I'd say the last 12 months have been, even for really good founders and good startups, it's hard raising the money they did a couple of years ago. That's true. I think a lot of people like myself are are focusing more on the investments we've made in the last 5 years because times are hard. I've been adding on some things just because I meet people that I can't resist, which is, my thing. But for the most part, I think people are trying to um, put all their energy into things they once invested in, and maybe with a little help can have an exit here or there, or help something go forward. So I think that's part of it. I think when I look at things in the US, if you look at just a macro level, we went through a long period of zero interest rates. So, in other words, if you were a saver and you had $100,000 and you put it in the bank in the US, you really didn't get anything. But now you can get 5 or 6% guaranteed by the government and blah, blah, blah. So, I think there's a whole bunch of structural. So, like if, for instance, if interest rates went down, if whatever other macroeconomic indicators, kind of opened up a little, I think the opportunity is still there. And I think, um, if I to answer very directly, a couple of years ago, if you were the founder with a great idea and a great team and a really cool problem to solve, you could probably raise money. I think what I'm finding now, even with founders and startups that are great, the investors are saying, I want to see X revenue every month for X for 6 months. That's becoming the new thing. So I think if I had to give one thing that separates it is before there was room for all different stages of early, but now even early stage, I think a lot of investors would like to see certain monthly revenues and certain amount of customers, uh, that sort of thing. And I think that's tough when you need the money to get there. Like that's the cycle. The founder saying, if I had 50,000, $100,000, I could get to those metrics faster. And then the person, well, I'm not giving you that money until you get there. And so that's a lot of where people, I think you'd agree, there's a lot of companies that are sitting at that place feeling that's how they get there, but it's harder to get the money.
So what makes, and I'm going to press a little bit on this, and the reason why I'm doing this is because I know a lot of founders um, that are just really excited about you, about your story. Even forget about the investment, just the journey. And you've been very open towards this, right? So I have in my circle, my friends, people that really, really admire you. And some of them have frankly asked me for an introduction. But I've always said to them, listen, the time will be right. And then once that time comes, if it's possible, we'll make it happen. So here is a further question: what makes a founder irresistible to Steven?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, I get, I'd say, 100 unsolicited contacts a month, emails, messages, WhatsApp,
Imagine.
people saying, "Hey, I'm so and so. Can you help me?" Um, and obviously, it can't help everyone. So certain people stand out. It's funny. It's like kind of like I have a hunch for because it's so much more than just being successful. It's who do I'm going to be really deeply involved with these people who, aside from being business partners, who do I believe in and who do I want to spend time with? So, uh, it's hard to say, but everyone's, like okay. So one of our common, a couple of years ago, uh, I get this email from Botswana from a young, educated guy, really detailed thing. He says, "Listen, I just want to help make things happen in Botswana, but I'm 27. You have much more credibility. Can I just, can you help me or something?" So that was Muketsi. And, I got behind him and I responded. And I stand with him for that whole thing. We're trying to, you know, make Botswana more entrepreneurial. And being a younger African, he had followed my things and just felt like he could get more done if I was by his side and I helped him. So, and I have, and we've been, partners and friends for, years now. So, uh, sometimes people just send stupid, they just send, "Hey, I need money," or, it's like, you know, people have to at least take the time to intelligently introduce themselves or have
What
spent
what
any time knowing about
what
who
is
I
the
am.
most ridiculous email you've received today that can come to mind once you think about it?
Yeah. I mean, it's usually some like get rich quick, mining kind of thing, or, some gold or diamond thing. And we just need your money. And then we could, something like
Yeah.
that, things that I don't really that I don't really know about and seem, clearly if, like not something, here's another thing when you said what, like when recently when I was telling you I just got into this real estate, Ask Property with Levis, and he, um, when people respond about things that I actually really know about. So, having done exactly what he wants to do in Cape Town with getting people from other places to translate buying real estate to be not so mysterious, to make it easier, be more of a concierge service for people wanting to understand Cape Town real estate. That's what I did in Costa Rica, and I made a lot of money, and I helped a lot of people. I helped a lot of local people sell and make money. A lot of people from other countries not get taken advantage of and all that. So some of it is just, some of it is the people, and some of it is, oh yeah, I understand what you're trying to do. I know how to do that, you know. So I have more to offer in that way.
So we're about to come to the end, and I know we've spent close to an hour in this conversation. So thank you for being here, first and foremost. I just want to wrap with a few questions, and then my colleague will come in with final questions as we come to a wrap of this conversation. I think the one question that I get to ask all of the investors friends that I have today, and that we have an opportunity to have conversation with, is what is the future like? I mean, I think that question is a question of hope, but it's also a question of truth. Because today, a lot of founders are still wondering what is the next step. So, everything that is happening, what is the future like, Stephen?
Okay, so like, you know, like everything in life, things go in cycles, and you have to be able to. So I think we're in like kind of a time where the future looks bright. It really does, but the present is tough. So I think let's say the companies, you know, my startups, you know, the people that have money are spending it very slowly, and yet trying to grow quickly. So it's a hard. Now, I'll give you since, you know, rather than just report what everybody's saying, which is that, you know, the amount of investment had peaked, say, like 2 years ago or something, and now it's less, but it's still significant. But here's the hopeful part that I've been involved with. When I was in Cape Town, we had an event. It's called the Wine and Venture Summit, and it was half European investors and Africans. 300 people all day to start to do business that way. I've also been to a number of events of India and Africa. A lot of my partners in Africa are also of Indian descent. And so the idea of finding investors, different kinds of investors than just from the US maybe, or wherever, you know, certain places. So I think I say that's the hopeful part of I know when we talk to the European investors, the opportunities in Africa are amazing, and they're relatively good value for people coming from there. So it's a lot of, everything will take time, but I think long term everything's good. Short term, you know, everybody has to be at their best. That's really how it is. You have to be at your best. You can't be depressed because five people told me no. You have to like go, you know, go take a run, take a walk, whatever, and tomorrow go out and smile because, you know, if I could do it with a death sentence, you could do it just because you're not getting enough money invested in you. You know, it's like that's what it takes. And so that's a lot of, you know, what I try to do as like an uncle, as a, you know, just like, it's not enough to just make your pitch. You have to keep your excitement even in the face of rejection. And that's not easy for
Yeah.
anybody. It doesn't matter where you're from, what gender, what country, you know, that's a human thing. And yet that's what the people who are investing in Africa, that's how we support our founders. You know, in Africa, unlike most other places, the money isn't everything. It's like we give you know, we give our support, our connections, our you know, our friendship, our families, because that's what it takes. And so I think I think it's just a matter of patience and strength at the same time. But I still believe wholeheartedly, and for somebody that is given a short lifespan, I'm investing for the long term. So um, and I think often for people trying to figure that out, one of the things that I did in the beginning is it's hard to, if you're not familiar with the African startup scene, where do you begin? So kind of finding somebody like myself, finding someone who understands it is worth a lot. So you're not just throwing darts at a board. You start to see, and then also to have most of the opportunities I have, as are because of who I know and all my other partners. Stephen, we have this thing. I think you'd be a great partner in this. Why don't you join us? And so I think when people are starting, if they start out co-investing with more knowledgeable, experienced investors, that's probably the safest way to get started.
Brilliant,
Wow,
just brilliant.
very brilliant. Thank you, Stephen. So, do you
Yeah.
have one more question before I wrap up?
No, that's my. I think he actually answered both of the questions that I have. So
Answer
thank you.
everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you
I'd
very much.
like to
It's
take
such
it
a
away.
pleasure.
Thank you,
It's such a
Stephen.
pleasure being with both of you today. And all I ask is that you guys stay in touch and let's continue the conversation as we go forward.
Okay, Stephen. I'd like to ask, City usually does this, but I'll do it and I'll wrap up the conversation. City usually goes with a big ask at the end of our sessions to say that maybe if there's an opening when you're about to invest, maybe an investment opportunity comes up and you're open to investing. We would like to give opportunities to people in our community to also be part of your investment. So, Sidi, would you want to refine what my ask is, or I should just go ahead?
No, yeah, no, no, definitely. I think the one thing that I will ask is, and I've learned this before, is there's a saying: if you want money, ask for advice. If you need advice, ask for money. And I think at this stage, because of the impact Stephen have had, even in my life personally, just following his story online and the things he does, and also some of the founders he's supported over time, I just want to ask if there's any way that we can set up. It could be a one-time mentorship call with founders or entrepreneurs within our network that you can come talk to them about resilience. That would be really, really powerful, and I think it will be an important thing
Okay.
for us.
Yes, that's a big part of what I do. So I would say more than half of my time I spend with people like what you're just people just reaching out. I can't do everybody, but the ones that come in, uh, and I feel like they're serious. I as my time permits, I usually can set up a call. When I'm in Cape Town, I met a lot of people personally, which was even more powerful. But when we're in different places, uh, you know, I I stay open to anybody who can use my help, and just with the thing that I can't help everybody, but I'll do my best. And also anybody who's listening who wants to join me on some of the things I'm doing, feel free to reach out and help support some of the people I have found, and I'm, getting behind in a personal way. So, yeah, I mean, I'm totally open, and my only thing is just because of time and everything else, I just have my limits of, when I run out of time.
Well,
Thank you so
so
much, Stephen. So,
you're
mhm,
still you're still staying with us for the long time, by the way.
Good.
Um,
you
your
still have a
legacy,
long time. I was going to
yeah,
say
your
that
legacy
out of you. Too.
will still be with us. You will still be here, and the founders will have the opportunity to continuously learn at your feet. It's been such a wonderful conversation, ladies and gentlemen. So
Yeah.
we meet here and we bring to you great conversation like this every Friday, and it's been such a privilege to have one of Africa's rock star angel investor, LP, and extraordinary mentor Steven, joining us all the way from New York, and just really pouring out a whole lot of, wisdom and important, covering important topics with us today. Thank you so much, Stephen, for being here. It's such a privilege
Thank you,
to have you,
Stephen.
Pitch from Africa.
Thank you both.
So until next time, everyone, it's been such a pleasure to be
Bye, guys.
joined by Stephen, and we'll see you all soon.